Yep, we're back.
Hello, everyone. Very, very warm welcome to this our final session of the day. Can see the numbers starting to tick up. Prathy should be joining us shortly. We'll give it 1 minute until we kick off, but just a little public service announcement. So Roger Stoffers was due to be joining us today for this panel discussion. Sadly, Roger has a bit of a stomach bug and he's a bit unwell, so he's not going to be able to join us. So Ali and Prathy and Emil will be holding the fort and making up for Roger's absence. So all good on that. Is Prathy... Is she actually in the session? Okay. We were all here not long ago. I'm sure she's on her way in. Give us a second. Okay. Well, usually I would just pass over to get started, but as there are only two of you until Prathy comes, just give us a moment.
Yeah, it's possible. Just ping her. Maybe she's in the previous session, thinking that you're gonna promote the meeting.
I think, yeah. The test session is gone, I think, but I'm sure Philip will check.
Yeah, sometimes a refresh will fix everything.
Yeah, it's all one session. That's the thing. So it just the session just continues into, it just kind of goes live to everyone. So give us a second.
Otherwise, it will be a very nice discussion. It will be me and me. You are muted, Philip.
Sorry, 1 second. I was just muting while I was typing. Give me a sec.
Well, maybe I can already give a little bit of an outlook. One of the things we hope to get also in this moderated discussion is, of course, the input from the audience. So again, just like, of course, in other sessions, but especially in this session, we welcome your input. So any questions you have, maybe already or maybe later on in the discussion based on what we are talking about, feel free to chip in, put your questions in the chat. We will keep an eye on that. And I think usually the most interesting questions are coming from the audience. I had a preparation call with Prathy and Ali, and also with Roger, who's unfortunately sick now. But we have some topics to discuss for sure. But anything you have from the audience, maybe based on what you heard and saw today, maybe based on your own experiences or things you just want to know, feel free to drop it in the chat, and we will try to cover that too.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yes. So we, as I mentioned earlier, we are missing Roger for this because he's a bit unwell. So we will throw that extra burden out to the audience for some extra questions to fill that gap. And Prathy is here now, so wonderful. All right. Well, a very warm welcome to Emil, to Ali, and to Prathy, who are going to be your moderators and panelists for this session. I won't take up any more of your time. Thank you for joining us today. Get those questions ready, audience, and put them in the chat. The stage is yours.
Yep, thanks, Philippe. We'll start off with a very short introduction. I'm quite happy with the number of people that's still there. I'm not sure about the weather everywhere, but it's quite nice here, so people might want to go out. But happy for all that are still at their desk with the computer, or maybe outside with the computer. I think the title of this the discussion is promising. Actually, it has the word promise in it. So let's see what that promise actually means for the people here in the panel and also for the people in the audience. But first, I'm the moderator today, so I don't have an opinion too much, hopefully on most of the topics. But I have two very welcome people here with me. Please, can you do a short introduction, Prathy, first, and then Ali?
Yeah, sure. I think most of you would have met me in the morning in the session. So I'm Prathi again. I'm data architecture lead within Sizewell C. So the same disclaimer I have given in the morning, any answers I'm going to answer as part of this panel doesn't have nothing to do with Sizewell C. As you all know, Sizewell C is a private and government-funded organization. We don't reveal any information here in the public forum. So yeah, don't relate any information or any answers I'm dealing here related to Sizewell C. Thank you. Ali?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Ali Alp, and I'm a distinguished software architect at Brainlab. And happy to be here and discuss event-driven architecture. And let's see that if we can somehow give you guys an insight into architecture minds, that what things can go wrong, and hopefully not go there.
Yeah, that's a good one, and maybe thanks for the introduction, both of you. Maybe already also leads to the first topic that I would like to put on the table, because well, you heard a lot about EDA. It can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people, but as part of EDA, we're also quite often talking about real time. So one of the questions or one of the topics that I think it's interesting from you to hear about your opinion about is, what does real time mean for you, and is it really required, or is it just a hype in some of the cases? Would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, I can go first if Patty, you are okay with that.
Yeah, sure, Ali. Yeah.
Yeah, basically, when it comes to real time, what comes to mind is that I want my system to be fast, right? But real time is more of a spectrum than a specific point. So it's very important to understand that what are we talking about? Are we talking about a hard real time, which like trading systems or control systems, or are we talking about, I don't know, more of a dashboard or of a fraud system that needs to detect stuff, right? So I always divide the real time into these categories to understand the intensity, how real time we are talking about. And the thing is that what event driven it brings to the table with all its glory and nice stuff is latency. And that's something that you always put stuff on your scale and see that if it's worth going that direction. So event driven in my eyes, it brings more complexity and more latency into the game, and always you look at the bright side of it, which bring to you the decoupling and some good stuff that we will talk more about it. But one thing that it doesn't bring is more speed. So I rest my case with that and hand it to Patty.
Yeah, I think I copy Ali on that one. But EDA can be used for both, right? Real time and non-real time. And we assume that mostly whenever EDA, oh, I don't have real time data, so I don't need EDA. But that's not the case. Initially, we may still use EDA for non-real time data, but we can move it into real time when we see the time as suitable for us. So that is the most important thing. So here, another thing we need to understand is real-time data is just a requirement or use case. It's not something who decides if we want EDA or not. So it's just if we want our action instant or later, that's it. Doesn't have to do anything with the real-time data or non-real-time data.
Is it something you have to be aware of when you're designing your architecture for your systems? Is it something that you can adjust later?
Obviously, we need to be aware if we are dealing with what type of data, and it doesn't stop us. We can do it. We can do the way we wanted it, and later modify the solution if it is required for real-time data.
Interesting. Yeah. Go ahead.
I mean, as I said about the spectrum of real time, that it really matters that what you are doing. So if, for example, LinkedIn is, for example, using Kafka, and if you are sending, I don't know, a notification, and you are a subscriber and you receive the notification that, I don't know, your friend is having a coffee in Starbucks and today feels like sharing it in LinkedIn. So that is not a very important event to be received by everyone. So eventual consistency would be tolerable there, right? But if you are in a medical environment and something happens and then another instrument needs to react based on that, so you won't have the same, I would say, infrastructure. Maybe you will go still with the events driven architecture, but it will be completely different set of tools or different mentality towards what is your definition of the whole infrastructure that you have.
Agree.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting, because you mentioned also medical here, and in the beginning of your response, you mentioned also like the requirements around trading and control systems. And maybe we're drifting a little bit away from the real time part, but or just coming back maybe actually. Can real-time data in an EDA structure actually provide those guarantees? And then to what extent should it provide those? Because the example you just gave for LinkedIn, that updates might pop up not in a consistent way for every user, versus the finance systems, the control systems, medical systems, where you need to be quite sure that everything happens in a specific time rate. Otherwise, you will just be too late when it comes to trading, or maybe even in a medical system. There's even more serious consequences. How can you cover that also in your design, and what kind of guarantees can you build in, or do you need to build in?
So in my, at least my perspective, knowing, as Pati mentioned also, knowing your data and knowing what kind of system you are dealing with is, I would say that any sane architect would go to look at it first, right? And before designing something in a closed door and then coming out and seeing the beast. And that's in my opinion, that's like the hard requirements of any system, that what is the use case, I mean, who is going to use it, and for what purpose is going to be used. And it's the one of the deep pillars of your architecture, I would say. And for that, there are tools and things in place, even in military, that, for example, for having an event-driven, for example, I don't know, a radar detects something and it needs to react to it. But you are talking about microsecond reactions there, and or in medical field, or in controlling or trading, it's very different than, for example, your Grafana's dashboard and the metrics that, for example, something is happened. Still, that Grafana dashboard can provide you with some very important data. Maybe you are monitoring the health of your workers in a factory, for example, and that, for example, spike on your graph in your Grafana is one person is not doing well. So you need to react very fast toward that. So it's very important, as Pati mentioned, the data that you are dealing with, what kind of system.
Yeah, well, I agree, because that's just a thing that pops up in every discussion, and we will maybe hit that elephant in the room anyway. But the underlying data and the understanding of the data, that's still the foundation for a lot of concepts. Maybe also this part of the conversation about real time and consistency and guarantees, which is more like the technical part. Also interesting to look at the business value. If we want to use EDA, let's assume we have a use case that requires us to go the EDA route. How can you also define the business value there? Is it are we talking about becoming more efficient, faster, better user experience? Can you share some insights on that?
Yeah, sure. I can take that. So the first principle is whenever we are doing EDA or any other architecture, doesn't matter. We can't measure the architecture or the framework, but we can measure the outcomes like speed, cost efficiency, the decision qualities like data-driven decisions, or the business agility. So we need to understand how fast or how efficient, how much we are spending on the integrations, or we duplicating the integrations, or how fast the data driven decisions we are taking. Is it based on the event patterns which we are seeing at the events, or is it about something else? How fast is business ready to make a change, like if there is a new change and if there is something they need to do, how much time is it going to take for market? So all those components to be measured individually. Once we measure them, that's when we can tell, okay, EDA is working. Because ideal thing is EDA should help us to reduce the time whatever is mentioning, whatever the action is and whatever the event is, then we measure the business impact based on that reduction. So the most important thing is those four components. If we try to measure them, then I think we are good. We can understand where is how much we can score our business or EDA outcome.
Yeah. Do you think that's different? And well, in a way, usually EDA is not necessarily a replacement for synchronous or other architectures. It can be complementary, it can be additional, it can extend existing architectures. Do you think that quantifying these components that you just mentioned is different for EDA, or is it aligned with the other?
It's
way for-
different for organization, but it's not different for EDA. So, example, if I go for e-commerce, for them the most important thing is business agility. They don't. It doesn't matter for them how costly it becomes or how much it is. For them, speed and business agility is important. As soon as the new product or new order comes in, they need to deliver it and they need to start tracking it. Same with healthcare as well. But when I go to the something other like finance, for them business agility is not important. For them speed and quality is important. So how fast and how qualified your data is, and how do you make sure that we are doing it right? And finance being finance, they'll see the cost as well. So for them the other components are important. So it depends on the organization and industry who we are dealing with and what is their priority on it and how do we measure it. In some cases your quality can go to 10, but still their EDA measure is not like very perfect because their cost and speed are very low or very high. So it depends on individual organization and their requirement.
Yeah, but clear examples. Thanks. And when we talk about getting to those outcomes, and then we already also were talking about the real time, somewhere in between is also the actual design. And a concept that comes is often referred to is domain-driven design. So I'm actually curious, what is your take on domain-driven design in the context of EDA, and maybe even related to that, what's then also the role of data products, maybe as a result or a part of that?
Ali, do you want to?
Yeah, sure. So basically, when we are talking about the event-driven architecture, we are talking about honesty. We are talking about delivering facts. For example, when you are in Amazon and you're doing shopping, when you placed your order, what is happening is something happened, right? So that's a fact. You as a customer, you just placed an order, but what will happen with that event, it comes to the territory of domain-driven architecture, which is it gives you the binding to the context of a domain, that event. So, for example, as when the order has been placed, then you can have, for example, I don't know, independently the shipping or the payment or the fraud, even months later, they can react to that event. So the event-driven architecture and the broker actually is just a fact-emitting factory, you can call it. And who and what will take and how they will do it, it falls into the domain, the specific domain, and they reply how and when they need to reply. Yeah.
I think you're touching on a few interesting topics here. One is that an event can trigger a lot of other events, and then the events as facts that happened in the past, but also that this triggering of facts actually that can be a result of, well, you can call it maybe long-running business transactions or business processes. Like you said, ordering something at Amazon can still have results days or even weeks later. I will probably come back on that later, because I think that's also related to the observability for in the event-driven architecture. So I'm putting that in aside for now, because we also have a question coming in the chat. So I'll go to that question. The question from is, how can DAMA practices strengthen event-driven architecture and reduce data governance risks? Who wants to take that question?
Yes, I can take that. So when it comes to DAMA architecture, just remember DAMA architecture doesn't really detail about the event-driven architecture, but instead it details about the data management and enterprise level, how the operating model works and how the framework works. The main thing about in DAMA is domains, common vocabulary, and the holistic view of lifecycle management. I think I have covered this in the morning session as well. So if I take that as a core principles from DAMA, yes, we can implement them in the EDA as well. The same way how DAMA is powerful, we can replicate the same principles from DAMA into EDA. But how does it reduce the data governance risk? The same way with any other thing. So data governance, again, what type of data governance are we looking here for? Is it for metadata? Is it for the events which we are securing, or is it for the data quality, or is it for integration? So each one of them has their own way and there has their own strengths to create that in. So if we see these as without DAMA, it would be very fragmented practices. Each team works differently, and with DAMA, we bring all of them together. So we standardize, we kind of bring the domains, and we govern the data by using domains, and we put the quality principles on those domains. Here, when we talk about governance, we are going to give the roles and responsibilities for individual domain. So the consistency is across the teams and platforms, which will strengthen the foundation. At the same time, we are implementing the DAMA principles within EDA and ensuring that reducing the governance risk for a long way in the future.
Thanks. I'm not an expert on DAMA practices, I'll be honest about that. But is there, within the DAMA practices, is there like also a special focus on EDA, or is it, like you said, more applying the general practices that are good enough also for EDA?
So DAMA is just a framework, another architecture framework, where EDA is the style of architecture. So you can implement that framework on any style of architecture. So it doesn't change. It doesn't change the meaning. It just, increases the value of the product or architecture we are going to deliver. That's it. So it's all, what does business need, what we are going to see in the end, how we are going to implement it. That's it. The previous question, same like Ali has mentioned, right? Data products. In this case, streaming platforms and domain ownership. So if you bring all of them together and ensure that they are governed in the right way, then yes, we are there.
So basically, if I'm allowed to put it in one sentence, is that the EDA, or it's doing, as I said, is moving the data facts, right? And the DAMA makes it simply makes it that the data that you are allowed to trust, right? So basically, it governs it. It's because the event log is the data asset, right? Here in that system that you are using.
And to what extent can you then maybe also make the data governance part of your design? Because a comparison we sometimes hear at customers is the way shouldn't the way, I'll put it differently, shouldn't the way you manage your data be manage and govern your data be similar to the way you manage and govern your software? Because if we are creating software, we're first building it in a development stage, then it goes to rigorous testing, acceptance, load testing, whatever, and only then it ends up in production. The governance we want to apply on our data, is it possible to follow a same cycle for that, or at least make it part of your design as early as possible in the process? What's your take on that?
See, it all I'll forget about EDA and everything for a second. Just assume you have a desktop. Every time you open a document, you open it and you save it. You keep saving it on your desktop. If you don't take care of your desktop and you start saving everything on your desktop, at one point of time your desktop would be so cluttery you don't even know where it is. So what do? We organize it. We organize in a way what is the purpose of the document, how do we do it, and then how do we make sure that it is being maintained, like example monthly pay slips or monthly electricity bills or something. You put them in a folder, but do you need like 10-year-old electricity bills in that folder? You don't. So you kind of govern them and make sure you take the same principles we apply to EDA or any other architecture style. So we need to ensure the events which are designed, the events which are created, we are making sure those events are governed, and we are also archiving the unnecessary events at the right time so that some events becomes obsolete at one point of time, and some other events would be always active and they can be reused by many other things. That is where the metadata also takes part. If you have proper metadata, you can reuse as much as events you can. If you don't, then you'll end up creating the same event again and again. So your integration cost is going to increase. Again, your business value is going to go down. So it's very important on that.
Yeah, and maybe that also leads us to the next topic about the organizational maturity that's actually required for successful EDA adoptions. Because we touched on several concepts. Some are general concepts, maybe more generic. Some are a bit more specialized and even maybe not unique for EDA, but not something you will always need to. So how do you look at the organizational maturity that is required for successful EDA adoption? What skills or capabilities do you need to find with the people, the architects maybe in an organization, to go that route?
Yeah, I think, see, if an organization is not ready for EDA, then they'll not have any maturity on governance. If they are ready for EDA, then obviously they'll have certain level of governance. But what should they have in terms of skills and capability? So if I divide the governance into different levels, right, different 4 or 5 levels. Let's say ad hoc requests, like they have no consistent timelines, no consistency required. It all depends on what they want. All they wanted is real-time data. So at that point of time, all the governance which is required within the organization is they need to have some skills, and they need to ensure there is a specific person who is looking at that ad hoc request. You're good to go with that. Or else they need some project level, like if one whole team is going to get it, or one whole project is going to get a EDA just for specific use case or specific requirement. Then you go at level 2, and then you say the organization needs the level 2 maturity for implementing the EDA, because it increases the capability now, not just skill. And it increases if you want to standardize at enterprise level. If you want your whole organization to not use any more non-real time, instead use the EDA real time or non-real time, use the EDA architecture style, then that's when we persuade everyone, and then we optimize our workflow. So that is the very highest level of maturity the organization required. So it depends on what are we going to do, and depends on that, do we have that kind of maturity with an organization. They go hand in hand like that. So we can't tell like, okay, you have 4 organization governance maturity, go and implement EDA. I don't need, the organization will tell, I don't need EDA, why would I implement it? Again, the same way, if you don't have it governance level 1, that doesn't mean you can't implement the EDA. So it's
I mean,
hand in
I
hand.
partially I agree with what Pati is saying. It is in my eye what I call is a socio-technical thing. Some architectural patterns, they are, most of them actually, is as Conway's law rightfully mentioned, that you can simply see the mirror of the organizational chart in the architecture of the software. So you can see that if you are living in an organization that there is a big boss, he's the I don't know, Zeus or whoever, the Greek god, and he thinks that he knows the best, and he then the ideas just come down toward the developers. In such an organization that there is such a hierarchy, I'm not saying that that hierarchy is wrong, or it should be always a flat office, everyone's sitting and eating at the same table. But the thing is that that will give you the space to think about which architectural patterns are possible for my organization before getting into choosing which architectural pattern is good for this software. Because for a certain requirement, you may come to a conclusion that, okay, it is shouting for event-driven architecture. But when you come to reality and wake up and see that in which organization you are actually working for, then you understand that architecture will not survive here.
Yeah.
So that's, in my opinion, it's a very important thing to have in mind, that can my teams think in events? Can they, as the one of the architects of the Netflix once been asked in one of the talks, that you have brilliant developers and people in the whole organization. I mean, thousands of people. How do you manage them? And he said that we recruit smart people and we just stay out of their way.
Yeah.
So that's how you have microorganisms that can thrive on their own, which comes to what Pati has mentioned. And what I'm thinking is that it's very important to filter what patterns you are going to use based on where you are working also.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I like the
Agree
link.
on that.
Yeah, go ahead, Prati.
Yeah, agree on that. The same thing I was telling in the morning. Every time we implement the architecture style or anything at all, we need a strategy. So, what are we going to do? How are we going to put it together? How is it going? What are your failover plans or something like that? So, without a EDA strategy, you won't know which level you fall in. Same like Ali was mentioning, if you bring in a smart person, which is like if it is a project level, yeah, your capability is built and then you go away and dust off your hands. So that's the strategy which we are putting in for ADA as well. So yeah, agree with that.
Yeah. Well, I think the link that you're both making between the social part, the organizational part, and the technical part, they go hand in hand, or at least they don't go. Do not go without each other. And but it also adds to what you were mentioning, Prati, about how the maturity level and then the architectural implementation levels rise together. It's not, you cannot get to level 3 for maturity if nothing happens also on the other side. So that's interesting. But it also, popped up the question that popped up in my head was, is it necessary for every company to go to the highest level, or are some companies already helped when they make a step to that first level of maturity and maybe make a few small organizational changes to wrap their heads around adding EDA to their assortment of available architectures that they use. So do you think do you need to go all in, or can you really take that step-by-step approach and then take as long as you need, or just go as far as you have to go?
I mean, it's whenever in my career, whenever I held for example architectural design patterns, and then if I, for example, taught, for example, what is I don't know, polymorphism, right? And then for the next 2-3 weeks, in every pull request, I was seeing forced polymorphism being used in the code. So the thing is that this is not a bad thing. This is a human thing, right? It even has a name called fad, which is a technology fad, which is something that it becomes viral. Everyone is using it. So Google is using Kafka, LinkedIn is using Kafka. I must use Kafka because I want to be in the cool group of the companies, right? So and the thing is that the requirement dictates what you need. And it's the joke that you go to a car company and you show a tire and you want a car for it, right? So it's a other way around. So for that, I would say that it's very important to know that all these little things that we are mentioning, these patterns, DDD or EDA or I don't know, whatever, these are enterprise architecture patterns, right? These are like recipes, like best practices that people came up after long. And what is the best practice is just a group of people did something and failed, and they are writing how to not fail for others, right? These are the best practices. So, and not every best practice will work for every problem, right? But as soon as you hear one of these fat names, like EDA, for example, you want to use it in every project that you have, right? But you need to always have in mind that, like everything else in this life that we have, everything comes as a package. It has benefits and it has cons, right? And the thing that I like really to be communicated in this panel discussion today is that to have in mind that the EDA always bring with it eventual consistency and complexity. Okay, this is a thing, inevitable thing about the EDA, and we always need to put this two on one side of scale, right? Yes, it brings you the decoupling and stuff like that, but having in mind that what you pay for what you get.
Yeah. Well, I think it's good to point out that people need to, or well, maybe even organizations need to be aware of that, and actually also liked the cool kit stuff that you mentioned, and maybe that also leads to another question. Well, I can put it like this: how cool are you now then with EDA? But another way to phrase that is, what was the promise of EDA for you personally in your organization or in the work that you're doing, and maybe also helping other organizations and people like you mentioned. So I'm curious about your personal experiences, and maybe you can add something about your own travel or your organization's travel to maturity, and maybe even where they bumped their head. Can you comment on that?
Sure, yeah. I think the promise for EDA is to reduce the time. That is pretty obvious because that is the reason why we want EDA, and what is the time between the event and action it occurs, and how faster is our decision. And second thing is it manual or automation? Does it require the manual intervention all the time? So if it is most automated, that is the reason the EDA promises as well. So automation is another thing. So scalability is your solution is high latency and low scalable, then EDA is not doing its job. If it is low latency and high scalability, that's when it is doing a right job for us, and we are also ensuring yes we are working in a right way. So it's like this, right? So with the better outcomes, like the same question going back to the previous question, like business values. If your business values or business outcomes are measured as high, that means the impact of reduction by using EDA is going to increase. So it is the same thing. That is the promise what EDA is bringing us. Like it is going to reduce the cost, it is going to increase the scalability and reduce the latency. That is where it is ensuring and promising each organization what we are going to do is right, and this is the steps we are going to follow. without that, yeah, everything fails. The effort we put in building EDA doesn't matter at all.
And your take, Ali, on this, on the promise of EDA for yourself, your organizations, the organizations you've worked with?
Yeah, the thing is that I'm always try to stay as simple as possible, and the EDA is a pretty complex architecture, in my opinion. And in my opinion, the architecture should evolve. So it needs to be based on a simple infrastructure, as architectural infrastructure, not in the sense of servers. And if, for example, you are designing, I don't know, a system, initially it really depends, but initially talking about EDA is overkill, in my opinion. So you can simply say that, okay, I have, I don't know, I want to develop, I don't know, a service, right? And you need to look that, you need to answer this question for your application. That, do I have a fact that there are a lot of services interested in, right? So if you have a fact, for example, like order placed, right, the fact that I mentioned, and you have a lot of parties that are interested in, that there are really different departments, even like, I don't know, shipping, inventory, or whatever, right? Then it's shouting for EDA. And then if you don't do this, you're gonna create bottlenecks. You're gonna create a lot of more speed and less complexity, but you're gonna create a lot of tension between departments, and blah blah. But if you are simply doing something that it doesn't need, and you try to be, I don't know, proactive and say that I'm gonna think for the future, is like the same as the microservices, right? So if you think in microservices initially, you're gonna make most complicated system ever, right? It's always for example, also the strangler, for example, pattern. It's that you put the system and you see that one part of it is being used by multiple things. You just scrape it and leave that as a microservice. Same thing for the EDA as well. So you see that something there are a lot of people, more than one, right, is interested in this fact. So why not putting it there? Because you are going to pay for that broker that is going to run always. It's not like a service that you can scale it down, right? It's going to run always.
So the promise is real, but you have to be cautious on when you need this specific promise.
Exactly. It needs to fit the requirements. It's like going to a doctor and you say that I got cold, and the doctor, I don't know, writes a full checkup from toe to head for you, for example. That's not necessary, right? You say that I'm just coughing. Give me a tea or something, right? So it's overkill.
Yeah. Good one. And I think that's probably also what you learn when you're working with maybe whatever approach, but for sure also with EDA. About half an hour ago, and we're getting also to the end of the session, but about half an hour ago, I mentioned a potential elephant in the room. Not sure in how many sessions it has not been called out, but of course, artificial intelligence is one that we probably cannot avoid. And one of the potential perks of EDA is delivering real-time data to AI. So what's your idea about integrating EDA with AI analytics and real-time decisioning? Is that something that you can already do now, or is it still a blurry field? How do you look at that?
So, in my opinion, at least, that complexity and latency that I talked about, that is the cost. Here is first good use case to put it in practice, because AI can handle that complexity easily, and parallelism is in the backbone of the AI. Without it, we wouldn't be able even to have these LLM chatbots. So when you are submitting a message, if you want to really synchronously block something and wait for it and stuff like that, you simply not gonna make it work. So all these agents, all these guys, they are already on event-driven working based on. And when you are, for example, I don't know, in the cloud programming, and you emit, for example, I don't know, 10 agents, they are obviously going to wait. The collaborator agent gonna wait for all these guys to finish up. And what does it mean? Event-driven architecture. So they are waiting for each other to continue. And in my opinion, AI is one of the best use cases for event-driven architecture. That's it's really worth the price and the complexity.
Okay. Oh, I think that's maybe a nice one to conclude. There's more topics I'd like to discuss, but our collaboration agent also just entered the room, so I'll hand it back to you, Philip.
Yeah, I think Ali has covered everything on AI. Just to add a bit more to it, like if EDA is providing the real-time data, how it flows and triggers, while AI provides the intelligence to decide and act on those events. So it's like in terms of human anatomy again. If EDA is a nervous system within our body, AI is the brain who deals with how it does and what it needs to be done. So events are loaded into a streaming platform where AI is used to analyze the data and take an action to produce a new event altogether. So that is kind of my understanding on EDA versus AI, or work together hand-in-hand collaboration again.
A nice way to visualize it. Thanks. Oh.
Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, well, a huge thank you to Emil for wonderful moderation there, and to Ali and to Prathi for some real wonderful contributions. It's been a really, really wonderful discussion and the perfect way to close out the event. So thank you all very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Good stuff. Okay, so my closing remarks will be going imminently in the sessions area, so you can make your way there now. I keep them very short and sweet, so if you take more than 2 minutes, then they'll be over. But yes, make your way there now, and I'll see you all very shortly. But thanks again, everyone.
Ciao.